Well, hey everybody, this is Real Honesty with John Ritlin, and with WrestleMania about 2 months away as of recording this video, I figured why not do a WrestleMania themed show. And I've done plenty of them. I've done some in 2016, 2017, and especially 2018. I did one that I kind of referenced to in an earlier retro review where I was going to maybe rank every single WrestleMania ending from worst to best, and then remembered that I did top 10 best and worst WrestleMania endings. I did, countdowns of those, and those did pretty well. I did them last year, so I was like, hey, I'm going to rank every single WrestleMania. Oh, hi, somebody's here. My producer. He's here to mention that he loved Hogan. He loved Hogan versus Warrior, not quite as much as he loved Savage versus Hogan, but he wanted Savage to win. So anyway, basically the WrestleMania main event is one of the best main events of all time. And yes, enjoy the kitty tail that keeps popping into the frame here. Honestly, WrestleMania main events really are how the show should close. It should close with the big match and the big event. It should be what fans remember and which ones were the best, which ones were the worst. And honestly, there have been some shit ones, and that's part of the reason why I'm doing this ranking video. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and some of these I have talked about at length before, so I will probably skip over like some of the minute details and stuff like that, but the way I did this is I rated them on historical importance, match quality, and just overall, did they get the crowd into them? Like, were they worthy of being in the WrestleMania main event slot, or were they just put there just simply because? But match quality is definitely a big reason as to why I put them, though I did put some for historical significance up a bit higher than others that may have been worked a little better. But here we go. Let's get on with this, and with the producer by my side over here, resting on the bed like the king he is, let's get to number 34, every single WrestleMania main event, all 34 of them ranked from worst to best, and Hogan versus Yokozuna at Mania 9 is the worst, and come on. What else is going to be? If it was Yoko versus like Bret Hart closing the show, this might have been, lower tier, but it still would have been, ranked higher than this. But Hogan having to get into the main event slot and, and just jumping on in there and taking Bret's spotlight, stealing Yoko's thunder, and beating him. If Yoko had just kept the title, had closed the show as champion, beaten Hogan, the King of the Ring, say lost it to Lex Luger at, SummerSlam 93, and then Luger could have dropped it to Bret at, Survivor Series, and then Owen could have beat Bret at Mania 10. That would have been kind of cool. I mean, I did a fantasy booking thing sort of like that, because I was challenged by the Derb. But the whole point of this is, Hogan did not need to close the show as the champion. Again, he did not. We were over Hogan. We did not want Hogan anymore. There was no need for him. And his ego trip had to continue. It had to run wild, brother. And unfortunately, that happened here. And it killed off Yoko's momentum, and it killed off Bret's momentum for the time being. Even though the crowd was still into Bret, it took about a year for him to really get back, and it actually affected the company badly doing this. So that's why it's the worst Mania main event of all time. Second worst, Hogan versus Sid Justice at Mania 8. Savage versus Ric Flair, was in the middle of the card for the WWF title. That was in the middle of the card. Now, I get it. It was Hogan's last match, potentially. They were billing it as that Sid Justice wanted to end Hulk Hogan, and he had Harvey Whippleman there with him. Sid had just turned heel a couple months before. Even though people were siding with Sid at the Royal Rumble 92, it was just a limp main event. Papa Shango missing his cue and Sid having to kick out the leg drop was ridiculous. Mainly because it wasn't supposed to happen. And then Warrior running down. After Harvey had caused a DQ, Warrior running down, getting a big pop, but then Hogan and Warrior celebrating. And 2 years after they had, just fought each other tooth and nail for the title, it wasn't a very good end. It really wasn't. And both men were gone from Hogan stayed around the company longer than Warrior did. Hogan was gone for a number of, weeks and months and whatever. Warrior was gone by, I want to say that November. Yeah, it was a weird transition for WWE, but Mania 8 gets ranked as the second worst Mania main event of all time. And then, number 32, Bam Bam Bigelow versus Lawrence Taylor. Look, for what it was, and Lawrence did work a pretty good match for having never worked a match in his life. He only played professional football, which is still a tough sport. Bam Bam carried Lawrence as best he could. They did fine. It should have been Diesel versus Shawn. If it had been Diesel versus Shawn, it would have been ranked quite a bit higher, because Bam Bam versus Lawrence Taylor would not have been, the one of the worst Mania main events of all time. I'm sorry. It wasn't that it was badly worked. Lawrence Taylor did win, and it was what it was. Bam Bam got a huge payoff from it. Great. It shouldn't have been the main event. And number 31, Taker versus Sid at WrestleMania 13. It was originally supposed to be Shawn versus Bret in a rematch. That didn't happen because Shawn lost his smile and had a knee injury. Bret faced Austin, tore the house down in Mania 13. Taker got slotted in there, beat Sid, who was now a two-time WWF champion. Taker closed the show as the champion. Great. And who knows? Who knows what actually happened if Sid did shit in his tights, shit himself or not or whatever. Taker and Sid didn't have a bad match. It was not Mania main event worthy. There's nothing against Sid. There's nothing against Taker. Just shouldn't have been the main event. Number 30, Cena versus Miz at Mania 27. Miz did retain, and that was great. Suffered a horrific concussion, hitting his head on cement on the outside. Thank God he was okay. I mean, besides the concussion, thank God he was able to recover and it didn't have any long-term effects. Besides him not being able to remember the match, but I digress. This is all about Cena and Rock having their build and everything, and Rock even interfered. Because the match ended by DQ and said, it's no DQ. Rock bottom Cena, Miz covered Cena, won, and then Miz got rock bottom. So it was all about Rock and Cena, and Miz was made to be an afterthought. While not a bad match, and while it was great that Miz did manage to get the victory, he was made such an afterthought afterwards, there was no damn point. It was a pointless main event. And then number 29, Roman Reigns versus Triple H at Mania 32. I'm sorry, you could say this is ranked lower than it should be. It was abysmal. Not because of the work. Triple H did the best he could to try and get himself booed and get Roman Reigns cheer, but it was not happening. Not Roman Reigns' fault either. Reigns may not care for the wrestling character, but the man himself, I hope he recovers from his bout with leukemia. And even if he can't get back in the ring, he can have a healthy life with his family. That's all good. All best wishes to Roman Reigns, in all honesty. This main event, though, it didn't help that WrestleMania 32 went on for about 2 goddamn years and was not a very good Mania. Anyway, besides Becky versus Charlotte versus Sasha, that was pretty good. And the opening, the main card opening ladder match. And a couple other matches weren't that bad, but this and Shane nearly dying, jumping off the Hell in a Cell. This just was not a very good match. And it went on for 27-something minutes. It should have been like 17. Roman Reigns should have easily been able to beat Triple H. It was to me, even though Triple H put over Reigns, still an ego trip, still wasn't very good. Hated it, quite frankly, couldn't goddamn stand it. Roman Reigns won, cool. I mean, we all knew he was going to win. It wasn't a very good main event. They had to turn down the house mics because Reigns kept getting booed. And in retrospect, you feel bad for Reigns, and I was just as guilty of just layering on Reigns, never tagging him and stuff, but just layering on Reigns' character. But God, this was the peak of WWE not really listening to us until you got to SummerSlam 2017. Well, not SummerSlam 2017, 2018. But anyway, the whole point is this was not a very good main event, and it was a long Mania, and it did not help. And then we get to number 28, Triple H versus Randy Orton in Mania 25. For Triple H being one of the best of all time, according to himself, and a few others who watch this channel, I'm not going to argue if you like Triple H, the wrestler, I don't really care for him. He had a lot of shitty WrestleMania main events. He did. I mean, and maybe it wasn't necessarily his fault. I mean, he was involved in some good ones, and I'll get to those later, but this was not very good. One, they made it where Triple H got DQ'd. That was going to be the end of his title reign. When him and Orton had this blood feud and everything, and it should have been about Orton getting absolutely freaking killed. But yeah, Triple H ended up winning. He ended up winning by dubious methods and whatever, behind the referee's back. But okay, it was what it was. They hit their finishers to try and pop the crowd because the crowd was exhausted from Shawn and Taker tearing the house down earlier. But not very good. Triple H did retain, cool, but they wanted to see Triple H and Orton kill each other, and they took away the one thing that would have made this match probably about middle of the ground if they hadn't put on the stupid, get disqualified, lose a title rule. And then we move on to Undertaker versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 33. Not very good. It wasn't. Taker should have not been wrestling at this point. He should have been wrestling last year. He shouldn't have been wrestling past Mania 30. I still say Bray Wyatt should have broken the streak, but it was what it was. And I might actually rank every Undertaker WrestleMania match from worst to best at some point. Let me know in the comments if that's something you want to see. But it just wasn't very good. It just wasn't. Taker looked wiped out. And look, he's old and he's got a lot of miles on him. In as good a physical shape as he can seem to be in, the human body can only take so much stuff. Now, Reigns did what he could. I'm not going to fault Reigns here, but I'm not even going to fault Taker necessarily. He did what he could at his age and with the mileage, but it was not a good idea. It was not a WrestleMania-worthy main event. It would have been if Undertaker had not come back next year, the following year. Just wasn't very good. Roman Reigns ended up winning. Okay, cool. He was the second man to beat Undertaker at WrestleMania. And then that built up the whole thing with him and Lesnar like a year later, which I'll get to that match later. But it just was not very. I mean, Taker leaving his gear and everything and leaving, like, okay, had that actually stuck with it, this might have been a little bit higher. But for a main event, it was just not very good. It just wasn't. If it had been, I don't want to say middle of the card, but if it had been like third or fourth from the top, it might have actually been better. It just wasn't very good. And Mania 33 was kind of a hot mess, honestly. Not as much as the New Orleans hot mess, and thank you guys, by the way, for making that review 1,500 plus views strong. And thanks, by the way, for making the Royal Rumble review that myself and the Derb just did about a week and a half ago. So damn powerful, like, for our channel. It was like almost 3,600 views. Thank you guys very much. But Taker versus Reigns did not deserve to be in the main event, and it just was not well worked. Through no fault of the guys, it just wasn't. And then we go to number 26, Triple H versus Rock versus Big Show versus Foley at Mania 16, the first time a heel retained the championship to close the show. It should have been Triple H versus The Rock. You want to throw Big Show in there, fine. Foley didn't need to be in there because they had to have a McMahon in every corner. The McMahon family had to have an ego trip. And Vince ended up screwing over The Rock. If it had been Rock and Triple H and Rock had lost, okay, cool. If you want to throw Big Show in there, that's fine. Foley had retired the month before, or about 6 weeks before. He didn't need to come back. It didn't help the Big Show. It didn't help Foley. I mean, yeah, once it got down to Triple H and Rock, it was fine. It was good. But had it just been that, it would have been ranked a lot higher. But yeah, Triple H won because Vince screwed over The Rock. Big shock. Big shock on The Rock. Gross. Don't Google that. It was not very good. Number 25, Hogan versus King Kong Bundy at Mania 2. Look, it just hasn't aged well. It just hasn't. It was a big blue steel cage match. Hogan managed to win. Hey, he did manage to, beat up King Kong Bundy, and Bundy was a really good monster heel who saved his money properly and actually worked pretty damn well. But him and Hogan had a good feud and everything, but this just didn't pop. And it didn't help that Mania 2 took place in like three different venues across 3 different time zones. And I might actually talk about the 10 biggest blunders in WrestleMania history. Got a lot of Mania ideas that are popping up in my head, but it was a good cage match for what it was, especially for the 80s, but it wasn't that great. And Mania 2, regarded as one of the worst Manias of all time, honestly, really hard to argue with that. Yeah, just not very good. And then we go to number 24, Rock versus Cena at Mania 29. Twice in a lifetime, you lied to us, WWE. You lied to us. You fucking lied to us. It was for the WWE title. It was what it was. You should have had Punk in here. Punk should have been the champion going in. And then Cena could have beat The Rock. Or Cena could have, beaten Punk or something like that, or pinned The Rock, and then Punk wouldn't have factored into the finish, and then Punk could have said, well, hey, wait a second, I deserve a title shot. They didn't do that. They went with Punk versus Taker, which was a good match for what it was, and actually led to a really, really good, Anaconda Vice rise up, out of the Vice maneuver. That was pretty cool, and a pretty cool moment, just Punk looking shocked, and Undertaker just looking absolutely, vicious. It was what it was. It wasn't a great match by any stretch of the imagination. People could argue they liked the more personal build of, the quicker build of this match, and that's fine. I'm not going to argue if you guys think this match should have been ranked higher, but to me, it was fatigue. The crowd was not really into it. Rock got injured, had to be carried. At that point, I think he was filming Hercules at the time, and I'm not even taking that out of it. It just wasn't needed. Cena had to get his win back, and it was just unneeded. And then we go to number 23, Triple H versus Jericho at Mania 18. Boy, it sounds like I'm dumping on Triple H a lot. I really should go on about doing that, so I will. This was not very good. Rock versus Hogan earlier in the show exhausted the goddamn crowd. God, the crowd got a goddamn exhausted. It was amazing how energetic the crowd was for that. For a match that really technically was not a great, well-worked match. Triple H and Jericho did what they could. They did fine, but it was all about Triple H and Stephanie. Again, it was like just the Cena-Miz match I talked about before. Jericho felt like such a goddamn afterthought. It was so fucking ridiculous. Jericho got his ass beat. I mean, yeah, he got in some moves, and it was Triple H's quad injury, the previous quad injury he had. It was working into it, but in the end, Jericho jumps off the ropes, gets a pedigree, can't fight out of it. Stephanie also got pedigreed earlier. Jericho gets beat. Triple H wins the Undisputed Championship and holds it for exactly a month before dropping it to Hogan at Backlash 2002. Yet not a very good main event. It wasn't. It was a very pedestrian main event. It was well worked enough for what it was, and Jericho was in the main event, and that's great. But I wish that he had had a better Mania main event than this. Number 22, Reigns versus Lesnar at Mania 34. I was really close to ranking this in the top and the bottom 5. And then I thought about it. The crowd dumping on the match completely negates this being much higher. It is not as good as their Mania 31 match. I'm not saying that Reigns and Lesnar did not try to work a good match. I'm not saying they didn't. I did not want to see Reigns in the main event again. I didn't want to see Lesnar in the main event, more importantly. I was sick of Lesnar. And I'm like, okay, they're going to give it to Reigns and then they'll give it to somebody else, like sometime after Rollins or somebody. And they didn't do that. Reigns got his head freaking sliced open. It was absolutely gross. It was just terrible, like just getting elbowed into like a submission. And then took like 5 F5s, I think 5 or 6 F5s or whatever, and Lesnar pinned him. I mean, it wasn't 6 F5s in a row, but still it was like, holy crap, Lesnar retained, what the hell now? It was just ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous. Not a very good match at all. It was better than I expected it to be, but that's not saying much. And the crowd dumping on it did take some out of it, but still, it was what it was. Reigns would eventually win the title from Lesnar at SummerSlam 2018. And would unfortunately have to relinquish it due to his leukemia. And once again, all best wishes to Roman Reigns, the person, to be able to recover and spend a long, full life with his family. This match, though, not very good. A Mania 34, not really that good of a Mania. Had some moments, but not great. Then we go to number 21, Austin versus Shawn at WrestleMania 14. The Stone Cold era has, begun. The Austin era has begun. Stone Cold's journey has been culminated with WWF Gold, even though they had that out in the original broadcast. Mike Tyson was at ringside as the enforcer. The idea was, would Shawn be the person, to actually drop the title? Was he going to? Was his back injury super legit? Who knows? Who knows about all that? I think it was somewhat legit. Maybe not. We'll never know. Only the man himself knows. But it was what it was. Shawn was clearly in a lot of pain, so either he was really, really selling or he really was in a lot of pain. Austin did what he could. Shawn did what he could. Match was fine. Ended up with a big old stunner. 1, 2, 3. And then Shawn gets the shirt draped across him. Across his face. And it was what it was. Austin wins, holds the title for a couple months, drops it to Kane, wins it back, and it was kind of messy. But still, for this, it was what it was, and Austin did manage to win and close the show as champion. Now we go on to number 20, and number 20 is Randy Savage versus Ted DiBiase at Mania 4. I wanted to rank this a lot higher. I really did. Mania 4 was kind of a slog. Now, it was great to see Randy Savage as, champion, but Hogan had to get involved. Hogan had to get fucking involved because he just had to. Hogan had to be the guy to get involved and take Randy's spotlight and everything, and he did. Sure, you could argue that Andre was there at ringside, so Hogan should have been there at rings for Ted, and Hogan should have been there at ringside for Savage, but it just took away. Look at the aftermath. I mean, yeah, Savage won, but then look at Hogan. He's celebrating like he actually won the World Series. Hogan didn't do a goddamn thing there, and he took away from Randy's spotlight. And I love Randy. That's why I got a shirt hanging behind me there. That's why I wanted to wear this, because one, it's a shirt that my sister made for me. Actually painted the logo by seeing it online and everything, and did a really damn good job. And I wanted to represent that because it's probably my favorite gift, one of, if not my favorite gift of all time, because it meant a lot. It meant that. But anyway, Randy Savage and Ted DiBiase having a good match. It was what it was. It was Randy's 4th match of the night. And Ted, I think it was his 2nd or 3rd. I think it was his 3rd match of the night. But yeah, it wasn't very good. It just really, really wasn't. Mainly because of Hogan's involvement and stuff like that. It was nice to see Randy close the show. I ranked this a lot lower originally. I wanted to rank this near the middle of the pack, though, because, yeah, Hogan's involvement aside, Randy winning the title was really cool. And then number 19, Hogan and Mr. T with Jimmy Snuka in their corner versus Roddy Piper, Paul Orndorff, and Bob Orton Jr. in their corner. It's the first WrestleMania main event, so I had to rank it in the top 20. Okay, is it a technical masterpiece? No. Not Savage, but Mr. T had to be carried quite a bit by, Orndorff and Piper. They really had to get him to slow down. They had to do some stuff not to embarrass the business, and also not to embarrass, a worldwide audience. Hogan did what he did. He did his normal stuff and everything. Piper and Orndorff were great heels. Orton did end up hitting Mr. T with his cast off the top on accident, and Orndorff got pinned. It was what it was. It wasn't great, not by any stretch of the imagination, but it was, a landmark match, and that's a reason why it's ranked here. It's the first WrestleMania main event, so hey, for spectacle, for historical purposes, I had to put it here where I had it. And now we go to Yokozuna versus Bret at Mania 10 for the 18th entrant. It was a good match. It was Yoko's second match of the night and Bret's second match of the night. Bret had lost to Owen in the opening match. Greatest WrestleMania opening match of all time, or at least one of. That or Bryan versus Triple H. You could argue either one. And I'm talking main card, not the pre-show, even though the pre-show does count. We had Bret beat Yokozuna. It was a good match, though. Him winning and then getting to celebrate there at the end with everybody, while Luger not looking very happy. But Luger will never was and never will be the worker that Bret was, and the respected worker that Bret was. So yeah, it was what it was. Bret winning, though, was the right call. And it was like righting the ship from WrestleMania 9 and saying, hey, this is our guy. And even Savage is up on the, up on the turnbuckle and everything, up on the ropes, and pointing at Bret, like, pointing like, nope, don't applaud me, you applaud him. Savage using his star power to try to put somebody over, like he did with DDP about a few years later after that. Number 17, Reigns versus Lesnar at WrestleMania 31. People are going to be disappointed I didn't rank this one a lot higher. Look, this match was not great. It was not bad. It was good for what it was. Better than the WrestleMania 34 match. That's why it's ranked a few spots higher than that. However, I didn't want to see Reigns in the main event. Now, I didn't have an issue necessarily with it. Mania 31 is kind of a mixed bag. It was better than I expected it to be. It certainly was. I don't remember how I reviewed it at the time. I don't think I ever ended up actually recording a review of it. But it was what it was. It was a good match. Rollins' cash-in really did help elevate it actually above what it was. I probably would have put it right next to the Mania 34 match had Rollins not cashed in. But he did. That added a lot to it. Rollins closed the show as champion. Lesnar didn't get pinned. Reigns did get pinned. But okay, so everybody left happy. Rollins got to cash in, have that Mania moment. Reigns did have it taken away from him, and Lesnar never technically lost the title. So it all worked out and everything. So it was good for what it was. Now we move on into the upper echelon. So we're getting a little better here. Hogan versus Slaughter at Mania 7. I can't say this was Hogan's best Mania main event, mainly because those come up a little bit later. In fact, I think you can probably guess which one is going to be, in the top 5. It was a good match, though. Considering Slaughter should have never turned heel, they made the best out of it. It was an uncomfortable storyline with the whole Iraqi sympathizers thing, but it did work. Hogan did, got some color. He got bloody. Him and Slaughter had a really good heel face dynamic. And Hogan did manage to get the victory. And it was really nice that Hogan did manage to close the show as champion, even though you could argue that Savage looked like the bigger star in the retirement match they had earlier. But still, Hogan did win, and it left the crowd happy, and it was the last time that Hogan should have main event of WrestleMania. So it was what it was. And actually, now that I think about it, when I said earlier that Hogan main evented the first 9 Manias, he actually main evented the first, 8 of the first 9, but was involved in the main event of Mania 4. But yeah, Hogan versus Slaughter, good enough match for what it was. And then we get Batista versus Triple H at Mania 21. Batista's crowning achievement, one of the best matches he had. It was really good, and considering Batista has said in interviews that he couldn't really even feel, I think it was his right leg, because of like nerve damage or something, or a pinched nerve. He did really, really well in this. And Triple H, for all the shit I've given him, did put him over here. All the shit I gave him for WrestleMania 19, he put Batista over here. And put people over in subsequent WrestleManias. It was what it was. Probably should put over Sheamus at Mania 26, but that's okay. We'll get onto that in another time. Maybe top 10 times, the wrong person went over at WrestleMania. Who knows? But Batista versus Triple H was good. Batista ended up getting the victory. Smash him with Batista Bomb. Good stuff, and they would actually have a pretty good trilogy in 2005. So he holds the world title to close the show. Cena and Batista holding titles to, and there was at the end of the night, good way to, sweep in a new generation. More of the ruthless aggression generation. Austin versus Rock at Mania 15 at the number 14 slot. Almost put this number 15 just for funny numbers. But this was the lesser of their 2. You could argue, I would actually argue this was the lesser of their 3 Mania matches. Mania 19 does not qualify because it wasn't in the main event, mainly because due to Austin's health issues. But this was a good match. This was good. Mania 15, one of the worst Manias of all time. It just was. Besides this and maybe one other match, I can't really think of what else would have qualified. Shane versus X-Pac wasn't too bad for Shane's first match. This was good, and Austin ended up getting the victory. It was the right call. There was interference. Of course, there was going to be interference. Foley, as the referee, ended up counting the fall. That's what should have happened, and Austin, and Rock would have a better match at Backlash 99 the month later, and The Rock would be turned full-fledged babyface once again. So it was a good match though. Austin winning gold for the second straight WrestleMania was the right call. And number 13, Hogan versus Warrior at Mania 6. Many are wondering why this isn't in the top 10. One, I don't really have a lot of respect for Hogan and Warrior as people. I will say that this is ranked higher than it originally was. The clash of two ultimate baby faces. It was not a technical masterpiece, but it was well worked as far as strength and wear down maneuvers and crowd atmosphere. The crowd atmosphere is absolutely electric. The people were split. It was good stuff. Warrior managed to get the victory. Hay in the splash, good exchanges at the end. Warrior gets a splash, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, Hogan kicks out at like 3 and like 1/8 or whatever, but still presents the title to Warrior, holds his hand, and made it all about himself still. But yeah, Warrior got to celebrate as champion, and like 2 years later, well, like 3 years later, is basically out of the goddamn company. But it was a good clash of two titans and two baby faces, so it's got to be in the top 15, even if it wasn't a technical masterpiece. Triple H versus Cena at Mania 22 is number 12. And why? Because it was really good. It was well worked. And I thought Cena was going to lose. I'm like, oh, Cena's going to lose. Triple H is going to beat him. He's lost at the last 2 straight WrestleManias. Triple H tapped out to John Cena. The crowd was shocked. The Chicago crowd was shocked. I was shocked. Everybody was shocked. I remember ordering that pay-per-view being shocked that Triple H tapped out at 2 of the last 3 WrestleManias. And I'm thinking, Triple H hasn't won since Mania 19. And he didn't even win the next time he won at a WrestleMania, because he wasn't at 23 because of injury. He lost at Mania 24. Or I don't know if he was factored into the finish, but the whole point is, he didn't win again until Mania 25, then 26, and then Mania 31. Mania 31 where he beat Sting. Hooray! Well, no, Mania 29 also. The whole point is Triple H has lost more WrestleManias than you think. Even though I kind of wish he would have lost to Booker T, because he should have lost to Booker T. But I digress. Triple H versus Cena was a good match. Cena winning via the STF. When he used to do the STF well, got that, and that was good. And Triple H tapping out was a good call. And then we have Andre versus Hogan at Mania 3. Many of you are going to be disappointed this isn't in the top 5. I'm putting it here at 11 because of spectacle. Because of the fact this was what drew a lot of people to the Silverdome. This match was atrocious otherwise. I'm sorry, it was. Now look, Andre's back was in absolute tatters. He shouldn't have even been wrestling at this point. I believe he had just been filming The Princess Bride, or maybe they filmed it after this or something like that. But he did so much to get through it, just how much he drank and the back brace and everything just to get through because of the amount of pain he was in. He put over Hogan clean. And yes, it was a wonder. Could Hogan slam Andre, even though he'd done it at Shea Stadium in 1980, but it was what it was. I think it was Shea Stadium. Might even done it in TV studios. But the whole point is Andre having that 15-year undefeated streak, could he lose? And he did lose, and he put over Hogan strong. And I will say that was really cool. And Hogan gained that slam, even though I will say Lex Luger's slam of Yokozuna was more impressive. Hogan slamming Andre, big iconic moment. So even though the match wasn't good, it's got to be number 11. I know that's going to create a lot of friction in the comments. And then we get to Taker versus Edge at Mania 24. Most criminally underrated WrestleMania main event of all time. Just going to say it. Edge deserved to be in the main event. He was a hot heel. Taker, really, really hot at this point. They had a great program. And honestly, for all the times that Edge had kind of screwed Taker out of the title or screwed him out of whatever, this is what needed to happen. Great moment where he hit a spear, then hit another spear, but then got caught in the Hell's Gate and tapped out. The match is great. I encourage you guys to go watch it. It's really good. And Taker closing WrestleMania 24 as the champion. The second straight WrestleMania 23, he didn't close 23 as champion, but he won gold at 23, then he won gold at 24, and this time in the main event, great stuff, and Edge certainly deserved that main event spot and showed just how great he really was. It's a shame that Edge would be done so soon after, like a few years after this Mania. Number 9, Savage versus Hogan. Well, actually, not Savage versus Hogan. The whole point is actually we're going to go with Rock versus Cena at Mania 28. And the reason we're going with that is, let's be perfectly honest. Not a technical masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination, but it was a goddamn good. It was a goddamn good match. Damn, it was really, really good. It was really, really powerful. The atmosphere was absolutely amazing. It was absolutely stunning just what they were able to do and create that atmosphere. And just watch all the stuff that they could do, and just all the great moments and all the great matches and this kind of stuff. It was absolutely wonderful to watch it. I don't quite understand how they were able to pull this off so well with the build, but it was really, really damn good. And honestly, one of the best WrestleMania main events of all time because of all the build. And folks, I'll be right back after this break. And apologies, folks. I just had to look over my notes really quick and clear my throat. So yeah, at number 9 was Rock versus Cena. It was just great, and Rock gained the victory in Miami. It was absolutely wonderful. And now, to take a look at what I forgot, Shawn versus Cena at WrestleMania 23. It was absolutely wonderful. It was a wonderful match. It really was. I wish that Shawn had won, but still, it was what it was, and it was great. It was great stuff. Shawn versus Cena was a fantastic match. It was supposed to be Triple H versus Cena, but it wasn't. And Shawn gave him a better match. I'm just going to say it. The Triple H versus Cena match was really, really good, but Shawn versus Cena, just that much better. They would have a better match just before Backlash about a month later in London, that 57-minute classic, but oh god, this was so great. Great stuff, honestly. And Shawn losing, okay, it's what should have happened. Cena should have gotten the victory. I would have loved to have seen Shawn win, but it was what it was. And now we move on to number 7, Brock versus Angle at Mania 19. Despite Brock almost dying and Kurt needing neck surgery and probably could have died in the ring with the wrong bump, they had a great technical masterpiece, great throws and everything. And besides Brock nearly nearly dying on that shooting star press, hey, Brock winning and them having such a great match, and Brock thankfully not dying, and Kurt being able to get neck surgery and be back in the ring, just a few months later after getting that kind of, non-invasive surgery, or not as invasive. It was a good call, and it was really, really good stuff, and I really did enjoy watching that match. Brock versus Angle was very tremendous, so that's why that one is ranked at number 7. And then number 6, Shawn versus Taker at Mania 26. Maybe not as good as their Mania 25 match, but damn close. Streak versus career. The moves they hit felt a little more, it did feel a little more personal, I will say that, even though I thought the Mania 25 match was better. This was good with, the super kicks and the false finishes and stuff like that, and Taker wanting Shawn to stay down, and, Shawn getting upset because Taker wouldn't finish him off. Gross, stop being that way. He slapped him. Taker got upset. Eyes rolled in the back of his head, hit a jumping tombstone, and thus ended Shawn Michaels' career. It was a very, very great main event, though. It should have been top 5, but I got my reason for the top 5, why I put them here. So, yeah, the top 5 is going to be controversial, but Shawn versus Taker, absolutely wonderful. Encourage you guys to go check this one out. Then we go to Bryan versus Batista versus Orton at Mania 30. After that great opening match that Bryan had versus, Triple H to open the show, this was great. Now, it's ranked just below another triple threat match, spoiler alert. And maybe okay, because personal bias, I'm ranking this as high as I do, but it was great. Come on, seeing Bryan hoist those 2 titles, the undisputed WWE, or the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, seeing him hoist that was fucking great. And the finish, or whatever, Bryan, or the Batista bomb into the RKO, and Randy jarring his back on those freaking monitors was absolutely scary. It was absolutely frightening. It was still a really good match. You had Orton. It looked like Orton was going to, lose because Batista planted him with a Batista bomb. But then, knee to the face by Bryan. He got the yes lock on, and Batista tapped out. And I get goosebumps just thinking about it, because it was great stuff. Bryan being able to hoist the championship. It's just unfortunate that he had to relinquish the title so soon after, and then had to retire about, a year and a half after that officially, until he came back last year, which was a great moment. This was great stuff, though, and Daniel Bryan hoisting that, yes, maybe it's personal bias, but that's why it's ranked number 5, because it was a really, really good match. Number 4, Benoit versus Triple H versus Shawn Michaels at Mania 20. I talked about this in another retro review when I compared Eddie and Benoit's title wins, or just, I gave a rundown of them. Absolutely wonderful. Benoit winning the world title was great. Winning at the Royal Rumble from the number 1 position and making Triple H tap out was great. Great stuff. Great way to work the Triple H Shawn Michaels feud and work Benoit in there and give Benoit a big moment where he beat 2 legends. that was great stuff. And Benoit and Eddie celebrating at the end. That's why this one's ranked number 4. And also, it was just a technical masterpiece and really bloody and everything. It was really good stuff. Even if Mania 20 wasn't great, it had some great moments. Number 3, Hogan versus Savage at Mania 5. The reason this one was written down twice originally is because I wasn't sure where I had ranked this. And then I took a look at my notes again and realized that I wrote Shawn and Cena down right next to it. So I was like, okay, Savage versus Hogan was when the Mega Powers explode, and it was Hogan's best Mania match. And not shocking, considering that Randy Savage could get the best out of just about anybody. Randy Savage is an absolute pro, absolute great wrestler, and I'm really, really happy that Randy was able to get this Mania moment. This Mania main event, the second Mania main event rather, but I just wish he would have won. But he didn't. He didn't because Hogan had to have the title. But Hogan won. It was what it was. Did he essentially bury Savage at the end of it, kind of no-selling the elbow? Yeah. But hey, Savage did have, leave Mania 4 as champion, and he got to go into Mania 5 as champion. So he got to hold it for over a year. I just wish he would have been able to hold it till SummerSlam. But that aside, it was a great, great match. It really was. And now we move on to number 2, Bret versus Shawn, the Iron Man match at Mania 12. Divisive. My second favorite Mania main event of all time. One of my favorite Mania matches of all time. Bret versus Shawn absolutely cut an electric pace. Yes, it was a bit slow at times, but they did have some good high spots and everything. Paced themselves well. People can say that long matches like this should not main event Mania, and that's fine. You guys are entitled to your opinion. I don't agree, but that is what it is. It was still great stuff, though, and Bret and Shawn getting to go the distance without a fall, and then in overtime, Shawn managing to beat Bret. It was great. And Shawn getting to hoist that. The boyhood dream has come true for Shawn Michaels. And again, one of my favorite Mania matches of all time. It was really damn good. And then we get to number 1, Austin versus Rock at Mania 17. My favorite Mania of all time, and one of the best Manias of all time on a lot of people's lists. Maybe it's been put up to mythical status, but it was really, really good. Austin having to win in Houston. Having to win in Houston. And Rock being the champion and just beaten Angle No Way Out 2001, just a bit before. It was great stuff, though. Austin and Vince aligning, didn't care for that, but Austin turning heel and just doing everything he could to win, and winning the title eventually with a whole bunch of chair shots and just beating the shit out of The Rock, shaking hands with Vince. That's why it's my favorite Mania main event of all time. So yes, I kind of rushed through some of those, but I hope you guys have enjoyed this list of every WrestleMania main event ranked from worst to best in my personal opinion. Please leave in the comments what you guys think. Like, share, subscribe. My Twitter handle is in the description. It's been real honesty with John Ritlin. I will see you soon.